Gothic MAGA.
Hello, my friends. Nathan Liao coming to you with another disclosure of end time information so that you can navigate the season that we are in right now. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we're here. We are navigating through the final chapters of mankind. Most of you are aware of this by now because you're seeing the signs take place all around us, and that's why you're here listening to this program. Some of you have been with me for a long time, and we have been on this journey for a while, almost 17 years. And there's others of you that are new. But real quick, just so that you know, I am a born-again believer. I went through the traditional channels to become a minister many decades ago. But a few years ago, my burden shifted when the Lord called me to be a watchman of the end times. When I first got saved in 1980, the Lord took me through a journey of studying the end times and put a hunger inside of me to try to understand and to study the scriptures, to find the secrets. And when I first began my journey, I went through the traditional route. I read the Hal Lindsey books. I was familiar with the pre-tribulation rapture teaching. I have seen the template because I also taught that template. I taught from the pulpit about the pre-tribulation rapture years ago. But since then, God has opened my eyes that teaching was wrong. And here on this channel, we've talked about what the Bible actually says. And if you happen to be new to this channel, and if you happen to believe in the pre-tribulation rapture like I did years ago, I want to challenge you, my friend, to lay aside the traditions of man and the philosophies of man, because those philosophies very often lead us into error. When Jesus came the first time, they got it wrong. And since we know that history repeats itself, Ecclesiastes tells us that there's nothing new under the sun, then we must consider the second coming will also be challenged with similar problems, which is that the people of God will get the prophecies wrong. They will not understand the interpretations, and that's one of the biggest themes here on this channel. We've talked about it, and through the scriptures, we have proven that that's exactly what we are watching right now. Once again, the people of God are getting it wrong. And that doesn't mean that I am a know-it-all. That doesn't mean that I'm somehow better than anybody else. It just means that we're trying to find the secrets and the truth that's in the scripture, because it's been there the whole time. The biggest reason that I have to address this is because the erroneous interpretations, the false interpretations, has led today's church to look for the wrong signs and ignore the signs that are happening right in front of our eyes. And the big one is the elephant in the room, Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump fits the resume just like the Bible said that he would. Now, I understand that there are some of you that have come upon this channel and you've never heard an alternative way of looking at interpretation, and therefore there's a tendency to want to just argue and say, "Nuh-uh, he's going to come from the Vatican," or Prince Charles is the Antichrist, or Obama's the Antichrist. And folks, those theories do not match Scripture. And in order for us to be able to understand the days we're living in, we have to be able to discern the things happening right in front of us. Now, in the last program, we covered this. We talked about the red sky of MAGA, and we looked at an account where Jesus had a conversation with the Pharisees in Matthew 16 when they came to him and said, "Show us a sign," which was ridiculous because for the past several years, Jesus' ministry was exploding with signs. He was accomplishing all of the prophecies in Isaiah. He was healing the blind and the lame and the maimed. He was opening deaf ears. He was raising the dead. He was doing the things that the prophecies said he was going to do. So when the Pharisees challenged him and said, "Show us a sign," he called them wicked, because the sign that they were looking for was of a messianic hero champion to rise up and save Israel from the Romans. It was a rescue that had nothing to do with eternity. They didn't understand the plan of salvation and that Jesus was coming to be the Lamb of God. They didn't get it. And because they weren't spiritually minded and because they were blinded, the only thing that they were able to see was the prophecy interpretations that they came up with. Satan had confused them with interpretations that were wrong. So they never saw it. And to this day, they have not seen it. And God has kept their eyes closed. Fast forward from the first advent to now, where we are now, the second coming. Jesus is coming very soon. And the Bible also gave us a lot of prophecies. The Bible told us what to look for. And once again, many of the prophecies that the Bible revealed have been misinterpreted. So now we have the same problem. The evangelical church is looking for signs that are never going to happen. And one of the big ones is that the Antichrist is going to go into the temple and claim to be God after 3.5 years of temple sacrifices taking place, which would then be the abomination of desolation, which is a huge, blasphemous misinterpretation of Daniel 9:27. Because Daniel 9:27 is not about the Antichrist, it's about Messiah. And we've talked about this here on this channel. I did a program on it where we dissected the scriptures and we saw with our own eyes what it says. So my motivation, folks, is to uncover those lies so that people can be rescued from MAGA, because MAGA is a lie. The movement of MAGA is a cult. It is powered by Satan. MAGA is the 5th degree, the highest level of Satanism. The core tenets and doctrines of MAGA is hate. MAGA does not care about the little ones and the weak ones and the sick ones. And already we are watching what MAGA's true colors are. We're seeing that MAGA is also infused with racism and bigotry, because in the last few days, Arlington National Cemetery has begun wiping from its website histories highlighting blacks and Hispanics and women veterans. And this policy was recommended by Trump. MAGA is satanic, folks. MAGA is a religion and a cult to Donald Trump, the Antichrist, the man of sin, the man of lawlessness, the son of perdition. He's the guy, folks. There's too much evidence now. When we look at his behavior since he came into office in the last 2 months, it screams of Antichrist. He has promoted videos of himself being a golden idol. He has promoted videos of himself sitting on a throne covered with gold. He's promoted himself as the owner of Palestine. He's promoted himself as the best of everything. No one can do it better than him. Folks, these are the attributes of the Antichrist. Daniel chapter 7 and 8 tells us he's going to be full of himself. He will be boisterous. He can never stop bragging about himself. Donald Trump is that kid sitting in class that you never wanted to be friends with. He's the guy that you went home after school and told your parents about the boisterous, conceited, full of himself bully who calls people names. Donald Trump is the guy that everybody warned their kids about. Donald Trump is the guy that fathers did not want their daughter to marry. He's the guy that represents everything that's evil. He represents all of the character flaws that we try to teach our kids not to grow up and imitate. And that right there is one of the amazing, astounding developments over this whole matter. Because the church, in spite of his blemishes and darkness and residue of bitterness and hatred and vengeance, the church still accepts him. The pastors don't call it out. And we have to ask ourselves why. Why are the pastors not saying anything? If you're a pastor, if you have a church, are you warning your flock about the Antichrist, about Trump? Are you denouncing his behavior? Are you calling it out publicly? Are you on record in front of your people calling it out? Are you? Because if you're not, then you're part of the problem. Because right now we have a great deception taking over the church, raping the minds and the spirits and the souls of God's people, and the pastors are acting like worthless shepherds because they're saying nothing. We're running out of time, folks. We are running out of time for the voices to rise up and warn their people. That's the other challenge that we have, because at the rate that Trump is progressing in the takeover of America, the rate that he is going, we only have a few months left before America goes full-blown dictator. It's happening fast, ladies and gentlemen. He has already removed the guardrails in the military. He got rid of the JAG attorneys, those justice attorney guys. He has removed the inspectors general, those who are in charge of making sure the Treasury spends money where it's supposed to. And if any judge tells him that his executive orders are unconstitutional or illegal, he is saying that that judge should be impeached, and he's not going to listen to them. And now his puppets who are working on his cabinet are repeating his words, and they're coming against the judicial branch, the judges. And folks, when a leader of a country has control of the military and no longer has to be held accountable to the law, to judges, then that country becomes a dictatorship. It becomes an authoritarian dungeon of evil. And that's where we are, folks. We're headed there right now, and it's just a matter of time until the press is no longer allowed to criticize him, and even programs like this. He'll be able to isolate those who speak out against him, as disloyalists, enemies of the state. He's going to come up with some kind of term to label people like me, because that's how they all operate, and people will believe it. So then when they start rounding up members of the press or voices for God or ministers who are calling him out, they will be labeled as enemies and they will be arrested with false accusations. And when the information comes out about their crimes, the people will be accused of doing things that they didn't even do. They were drug runners. They had bad pictures on their computer. They were money laundering. They were selling drugs. They were et cetera, et cetera. So, ladies and gentlemen, learn all that you can right now. And when you hear these programs, please download them, take a lot of notes, and share them with everybody that you know. Because this information is very important for God's people to understand. And if you appreciate these efforts that Allison and I are doing, then we appreciate your support. Give us a helping hand, folks. We just have a little bit of time left, but please continue helping us. You can look at the description, and there are links there where you can help to support us. And we really, really appreciate it. And God bless all of you that are helping us in this mission to save souls and to get the truth out. Now today, we're going to talk about Elon Musk. And I'm going to share some information on this program that is going to be very eye-opening to a lot of you. This information is a disclosure that is going to help a lot of you to fill in the blanks and to understand what we're facing. As I share this information about Elon Musk, which proves that he's the second beast, I want to also leave you with this challenge, folks, because I know that there are some of you that are still battling, calling out Trump. You do not want to admit that Trump is the guy. It's easy for you to say Elon is evil and the second beast, but I'm noticing there's a portion of those who are seeking the answers. They can't bring themselves to say that Trump is also one of the villains. Why is that? Is it pressure from your friends? Is it pressure from your family? Because here's the deal, folks. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, it says that those who do not want to believe the truth will then be struck with the plague of delusion. And that plague will be a spiritual yoke that will be placed on people to blind their eyes, to close their ears, so that they are not even able to comprehend the truth when they see it. Which means that when a person is faced with the truth, if they don't like the truth, they don't get to know the truth anymore. And their conscience gets seared. And then after that, they will find themselves approving of the evil and the unrighteous behavior of the little horn, son of perdition. They will approve of his unrighteousness and also take pleasure in it. Now, my friend, this is a dangerous place to be, because once a person reaches that point, it's very difficult to come back from that. So, my message today is for the ones who are not fully 100% deluded, because those people probably can't be saved. But the ones who are not totally 100%, if you might be a Trump follower, but now you're wondering if he might be the guy, let me just say it, my friend. Yes, he is. And if you're wondering about it, that's the Holy Ghost prompting you. That's the Holy Ghost letting you know, danger, 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 flee this. Just because the majority of the people in your church are making light of it and dismissing it does not mean that it's okay. Don't follow the crowd, my friend. Most of the crowd will go into ruin. Most of the crowd will go into the broad way of destruction. Most of the crowd will follow the Antichrist and darkness and lies. And it's only going to be a remnant, a small percentage that will see the truth. So my prayer is that you are one of them. All right, my friend, now let's talk about Elon Musk. If you have your Bibles, please turn to the book of Revelation, chapter 13, and we're going to look at the prophecies about the second beast, and we're also going to see it matches Elon. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, if Elon is the guy, then common sense would tell us that he's working with Trump. Therefore, Trump, by default, is also the other guy. So keep that in mind. This is simple spiritual discernment in action. And we have to conclude the truth no matter how much it disturbs us. We have to receive it and accept it. So in the book of Revelation 13, verse 1, then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising out of the sea, having 7 heads, 10 horns, on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Now the beast that I saw was like a leopard, his feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion, which is Donald Trump. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority, meaning the mouth of the lion, Donald Trump, was given great authority, great power, and a throne by Satan. And I saw one of the heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed. and all the world marveled and followed the beast. What does this mean? This means that whoever this first beast character is, something occurred that mystified the world. It astounded the world. The world was marveling about it. How did he get there? Who is this guy? Okay, moving on. So they worship the dragon who gave authority to the beast, and they worship the beast, saying who is like the beast and who is able to make war with him. Now, another thing we have to keep in mind is the mouth of the beast is Donald Trump, but the beast itself is the end-time kingdom consisting of several kings. It is a conglomerate, an alliance of several kings, several nations that give their authority to this idea for just a little bit of time at the very end. So, key point, folks, the mouth of the lion speaks for the beast. And when we look at where Donald Trump is right now in the formation of this beast, it is still rising. It is still transforming and morphing into this thing. The United States is morphing into Mystery Babylon, and the End Time Beast Alliance is forming right now. And of course, that's what we can see in the news, because Trump wanted to take over Canada, he wanted to take over Panama and Mexico and Greenland, but then King Charles got involved and asked Donald Trump, hey, instead of conquering Canada, why don't you just join the Commonwealth and then take advantage of the benefits for being in the Commonwealth? And you see, folks, that event right there is throwing a lot of people off, because King Charles did not say that Trump was then going to take over the Commonwealth. At this point, he didn't say that. In fact, he's doing something that's very clever as a chess move, because he sees that Trump wants to invade one of the Commonwealth members, Canada, and Charles doesn't want it to happen, so he's trying to prevent war. So he's dangling the carrot of joining the alliance, and then maybe Trump won't invade them. Now, I understand that there's people out there that are saying, see, this proves that Charles is the Antichrist. He's going to head it up. No, he's not. And ladies and gentlemen, if you read Daniel chapter 7 and 8 and you see the resume and the attributes of the little horn, we have it in front of us. He is boisterous. He has a big mouth. He is always bragging. That's Donald Trump. Donald Trump is always letting us know that no one can do it better than him.
Nobody can do it like me. Nobody. Nobody can do it like me. Honestly.
Nobody's stronger than me.
Nobody has better toys than I do.
There's nobody bigger or better at the military than I am.
Nobody loves the Bible more than I do. Nobody builds walls better than me.
Nobody's better to people with disabilities than me. Nobody's fighting for the veterans like I'm fighting for the veterans.
There's nobody that's done so much for equality as I have.
There's nobody more pro-Israel than I am.
There's nobody more conservative than me.
There is nobody that respects women more than I do. Nobody would be tougher on ISIS than Donald Trump.
Because nobody's ever had crowds like Trump has had.
There's nobody that understands the horror of nuclear better than me.
And nobody even understands it but me. It's called devaluation.
The sale of the uranium that nobody knows what it means. I know what it means.
Nobody knows more about trade than me.
Nobody knows the game better than I do.
Nobody's in the history of this country has ever known so much about infrastructure as Donald Trump. I know the H-1B. I know the H-2B. Nobody knows it better than me.
Nobody knows politicians better than I do.
Nobody knows more about taxes than I do. Nobody knows more about debt than I do.
Nobody knows the system better than me. Which is why I alone can fix it.
When we compare that behavior that matches the Bible to Charles, King Charles, Charles does not behave in that way. So that right there eliminates him. And to try to say, well, no, it's still Charles. And if a person wants to do that, then you're arguing with the prophecies, you're arguing with the scriptures, and you're behaving like the Pharisees. Because Jesus said, you can see the sky and the weather in the sky, but you cannot discern the signs of the times. The signs of the times taking place right now is a loud, boisterous loudmouth, a full of himself, conceited narcissist, behaving the way that the Bible said he would behave. He would be full of himself, speaking great words, and that's all he would be doing all the time, thinking he's great, promoting himself as a god. King Charles has not promoted himself as an idol, turned into some statue covered in gold. He did not release a video promoting himself like that. And the people who are saying, well, it's Charles, are following a sign that was told to them by a preacher, but they do not match the scriptures, folks. So if you want to try to claim that Charles is the Antichrist, he doesn't meet the requirements. And if he doesn't meet the requirements, he is eliminated. This is not about my opinion. This is about the words on the page of Daniel, chapter 7 and 8. The Bible calls him the little horn. His name is Trump, a little horn. It matches, folks. King Charles's name does not match little horn. Satan is giggling and laughing, and he's saying, yes, my plan worked. I threw in a false trail of breadcrumbs. So, folks, discernment is so very important right now. So, getting back to Revelation, verse 5, and he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. Trump has already done it, folks. With his own mouth behind a microphone, insulted Jesus and claimed to be equal to Jesus. He's already done it. So the beast was given a mouth, Donald Trump, speaking great things. By the way, speaking what kind of things? What's that word? Great things. So it's describing Donald Trump in Revelation 13:5. And he was given authority to continue for 42 months. That's 3.5 years. So at some point, the stopwatch button will be clicked, and we will be able to count out 3.5 years. But here is the mystery, folks. Here's the challenge. We don't know when the clock starts. Because since we don't have the rapture to start the clock, which, by the way, that would have made it easy, wouldn't it? If the rapture happened and then the survivors who are left behind start the clock and then say, okay, in 3.5 years, this guy who's in charge now, who's rising up, full of himself and is pretty boisterous, this guy in 3.5 years is going to claim to be God, and then 3.5 years after that, Jesus is coming back. That old model is dated, and it also has a huge flaw built into it, which is God doesn't reveal the secrets right in front of everything. God is not going to place a marker that makes it that easy to know when he's coming, because Jesus told us, I am coming like a thief at an hour where you don't expect it. Verse 5 says the Antichrist continues 42 months, and then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven. And it was granted to him to make war with the saints and overcome them. That's what he's doing right now, folks. He has taken the evangelicals under his arm and destroying them with deception. He was given power over the saints, and he overcame them. Why? Because they didn't understand the word. They were deceived. And as a result, they are being overcome by the Antichrist little horn of Satan, which is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the wrecking ball, and he is wrecking the faith. So many in the church. He's destroying their testimony. He's destroying their witness. That is the battle that's taking place right now. Trump is the goat from under the earth. And if the people follow him and behave like him, they will turn into goats themselves and be overcome. And when Jesus comes back, they will be identified as goats. This is a scary proposition. This is terrifying. This is not good. That's why I'm sharing this message, because Jesus does not want you to be found when he returns acting like a goat. So if you are following Trump, I want to encourage you, my friend, renounce it. Leave it. He doesn't care about you. And by the way, that he is slashing all of the budgets of Americans and those who are sick, those who are receiving aid. A lot of people already are not getting their help. There are VA members, veterans, who are not getting their checks, who are being turned down, turned away. Trump's firing them. He doesn't care. In states that voted MAGA, in Nebraska and Kentucky and Missouri, they're finding out that Trump was lying the whole time. They're finding out Trump was not your friend. If you're still not sure, let me just help you out right here. Leave MAGA. Repent to Jesus. Ask him to open your eyes and to forgive you for following the Antichrist. Because if you are following Trump, you're following the Antichrist, my friend. And there's only one path that leads to. Now, let's keep going. And authority was given to him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. At this point, this moment in time, Trump has not started conquering the world yet, but it's going to happen. That's coming, folks. War is coming. The United States is going to start invading other countries. And in order to do this successfully, it's going to take bodies. It's going to take troops. It's going to take our young people. It's going to take your kids, your grandkids, your sons and your daughters are going to be drafted to go fight for the Antichrist. If you are a supporter of MAGA, how does that sit with you? When Trump said he was going to be the man of peace, he was going to stop all the wars. The United States doesn't need to be worried about other countries and other wars. We have to just worry about ourselves. That's the message that he promoted. But now we see he was a liar. That right there should let you know he was lying to you the whole time, and he's going to want the blood of your children. And what are you going to do about it? When your son gets drafted, what are you going to do? Are you going to say, here, son, take this red cap, Make America great again. So, son, go do it. Go make America great. Fight for your leader, Donald Trump. Is that what you're going to do? Because if it is, I feel sorry for your kids. We're talking about the lives of the children out there. And it goes on, verse 8, all who dwell on earth will worship him whose names have not been written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If anyone has an ear to hear, let him hear. He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. What does that mean? That means at some point there's going to be roundups. There's going to be tattletale squads, just like we saw the brown shirts during the 30s in Germany. The tattletale squad that turns in their neighbors. We're going to have MAGA Americans who are brainwashed, who are going to turn in names of neighbors who don't follow MAGA. We're going to have tattletales. And what this is saying right here is if a MAGA person tattletales on their neighbor, then they themselves will reap a similar punishment. They will be thrown into prison as well. Just a word to the wise. If you want to be a MAGA bounty hunter and go look for souls to turn in because they don't worship Trump, the Antichrist, God will make sure that you will reap what you sow. Also, he who kills with the sword will be killed themselves. That means if MAGA people want to join the lynch mobs that are probably going to be rising up in the future, because great evil is going to be unleashed, more demons are going to be unleashed on the surface of the earth, and there will be squads of people who go out and lynch those who are enemies of the state of Donald Trump, and they're going to kill. They'll drag people out of their houses and kill them. MAGA people will turn into hit squads and lynching squads. That's coming, folks. Jesus said it's going to come. He said many will betray one another, even in households. Fathers to their kids, kids to their parents, brother against brother. People are going to turn in one another. And if people participate in bloodshed, they themselves will be killed. God will make sure of it. So that then leaves us with the challenge. What do we do? The answer is right here, folks. Verse 10 ends with the remedy. It tells us, here is the patience and faith of the saints. In other words, by our patience, we possess our souls, which means we have to follow Jesus. We have to pick up our cross and walk on the Via Dolorosa just like he did. Be imprisoned or even maybe be martyrs. That's the path, folks. That's it. That's where we are. That's another sermon. We need to prepare for the possibility of being martyrs, and that's one of the realities that we face. And since the pre-tribulation rapture did not rescue us from this challenge, then that means that every one of you guys listening need to increase your faith to the point where you have it settled in your heart as Jesus had it settled in his. That's where we have to get, my friends. We have to get full of the book of Hebrews, chapter 10 and 11 and 12, talking about the hall of faith, the champions of faith, who by faith were able to look death in the face and not be fearful. And by faith, we're looking to a city, to a country, to an inheritance, to a city whose builder and maker is God. Folks, that's where we have to get. That's the type of faith that we have to build. Moving on, verse 11. And here's where we start talking about the second beast. Here it is, folks. Then I saw another beast coming out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb and spoke like a dragon. So right here we see the second creature rising up. Where? He comes out of the earth. So make note of that. If you're taking notes, write that down. The second beast comes out of the earth. And it describes him. He had 2 horns like a lamb, but spoke like a dragon. What does that mean? He looks tame, friendly. He looks harmless. But in truth, he speaks words of evil, lacking mercy, that are heartless, that are cold, because he doesn't care about people. He doesn't have mercy, which describes Elon Musk. If you're familiar with the way that he practices his businesses, he is in the habit of firing people by sending them a text message or an email and not giving them a friendly goodbye, not giving them a thank you, not showing appreciation for the contribution that people did while they were working for him. He fires and he says, don't let the door hit you. He doesn't care about people. He looks like a cool little nerd, but in truth, he's a heartless oligarch who only cares about himself. Verse 12, and he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence. Make note, the second guy has the same authority as the first guy in his presence. That means that they're close to one another. Or in other words, they hang out with one another. And that's exactly what we see in the behavior of Elon. He hangs out with Trump. He's staying at Mar-a-Lago. He's in the Oval Office. He's always there giving press releases. And now he's in cabinet meetings, sitting in on top secret gatherings that require a security clearance. And even though he doesn't have one, he's still sitting in. Am I the only one that sees this as being odd? It makes no sense. The whole world is mystified by it. Because here we have the richest man on earth cozying up to Donald Trump, the Antichrist. They are fulfilling the prophecies perfectly. And this is what Jesus was talking about in Matthew 16 when he told the Pharisees, you guys are looking for your own sign. There's this one thing that you're looking for, which is, and Jesus didn't say what that sign they were looking for was, but we know what it was now. When we look back, they were waiting for Jesus to conquer the Romans. They were waiting for Jesus to call himself king of Israel, raise up an army, and fight the Romans. That's the sign they were looking for, which was never going to happen. While in the meantime, they were dismissing the signs that Jesus was performing with his own hands before all of them. When we look at Donald Trump and Elon, they're doing the same thing. Donald Trump's fulfilling Daniel 7 and 8 and 11. And now here we have Elon cozying up to the first beast. And it goes on. He exercises all the authority of the first beast, the first guy, in his presence, so they're together, and causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Translation: Elon is working in tandem with Trump, but he's pointing the people to Trump, and he's pointing the people to the government that Trump is building. The two of them are building a new system of government right now. They are destroying the old America. They're destroying the Constitution, trampling on the Bill of Rights. They're getting rid of the old, and they're raising up a new system. And then verse 13, look at this, folks. And he, the second beast, performs great signs, so that he even makes fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men. Now, in the past, the established church interpreted it as meaning the second beast guy, who we were told was the Pope, or some false prophet, some guy wearing a robe and following the Antichrist around. We were led to believe that he would point up to the sky on TV, or maybe there'd be a press conference and he would get in front of all the cameras and say, watch what I can do. And he'd point up to the sky and fire would somehow come out of the sky. And then he would say, see, I am empowered by God. So therefore, you need to listen to what I say, honor me and honor my sidekick, the leader of the world, Mr. Damien Thorne. That is the image that we were given. But that's not what it says right here. It says, and he performs great, meaning great, for the word great. In other words, MAGA, great, hint. The signs that he has have great because he works for MAGA. But these are tokens, identifiers. When we look at the word signs, it means token. It means an omen. It means a signature. It means an event that happens to let everyone else know that it is a signal or a hint or an exhibit to prove that it's real, to prove that the resume is true. So in other words, Elon Musk is not going to call fire from heaven and point to the sky and lightning bolts come down. So in other words, the fulfillment of this passage will happen not with the false prophet pointing to the sky and lightning coming down, but instead he will be able to do some things that cause fire to fall from the sky. And ladies and gentlemen, out of all the people on earth, out of all 8 billion people, how many of them have their own rocket company? How many? Only one. There's only one man in the whole world that has a rocket company. It's his company. He has rockets. And every now and then, when his rockets go into the sky, they have malfunctions and they explode in the sky, and then they come back down as fire in the sight of men. So what this verse is saying is that he has the ability to perform his rockets, send them up into the sky, but when the rockets explode and return to earth, it's going to be fire returning to earth. And if you can see that this is happening because of him, that means this is a sign to discern. It's a marker. It's an identifier. It is a witness that he's the guy. When we look at it this way, folks, it screams, look, there he is. He is the only one on earth that can do this. Verse 14, and he deceives those who dwell on earth by those signs which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived, and he was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. That means Elon Musk is going to do something in the future. This has not happened yet. This is something that we should be discerning, because it might happen in a way that we're not expecting. It might happen in a way that perhaps doesn't match the preconceived idea that we have in our mind. But we have to be watching for this verse to be fulfilled. So this is still coming. Verse 16, and he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or foreheads, that no man might buy or sell except he who has the mark. Elon Musk has Neuralink. He has the technology where he wants to embed brain chips into everybody so that they can get online, which will make them able to participate in the new money system, the cryptocurrency. It's also going to work in tandem with AI technology. The Colossus AI deity that he already told us is going to be the new God of the future. It's going to be a God of AI. It's going to have directives. It's going to tell us what to do, etc. He's already told us that that's coming. And there are other billionaires who are working with him. What are the odds, folks? He's the only one on earth that can do that, have rockets explode. And then he's the only one on earth who has a new technology that he's working on, Neuralink. And then he's the only one on earth that also owns a new AI facility that he's building in Memphis, Tennessee. He is the only one that can do all of these things. He's coming up with a new digital currency. Elon Musk is the second beast. But then it gets worse. And right now, I want to shift to some information that I need you guys to get a hold of. And after you hear what I'm about to say in this disclosure about Elon Musk, I am hoping that a lot of you will be awakened. I am hoping that a lot of you will share this warning with everyone that you know, because it's more serious than we can imagine. Now, when we look at Elon Musk, if we look at his name, the name Elon is found in the Bible. It's in there, E-L-O-N, and that name means terebinth tree or oak tree. And you can do it yourself, folks. You can go to Blue Letter Bible, type in Elon, it'll bring up Elon, and then you can look at the root meaning, and it will say oak tree, terebinth tree, which is oak. So let's lay that on the table. If you're taking notes, write Elon equals oak tree. Now, the name Musk means aroma or scent, like smell, scent. S-C-E-N-T, scent, a smell. So the name Elon Musk means the aroma from the oak tree. Okay, so write that down. Now, when we look at the revealing of the second beast, Elon, it says that I saw a second beast rise from the earth. It describes Elon Musk rising out of the ground. This beast creature that's inside of him is evil. It's a very powerful principality. It is full of decadence, pandemonium, darkness, and hatred, and everything that's opposite of God. That's what powers this creature, because it comes from the bottomless pit. So this creature comes out of the ground in the form of Elon Musk, but isn't it interesting that in Revelation it says that it grows, in other words, it grows out of the ground. His name means terebinth tree or oak tree with an aroma. Okay, now folks, hold that thought. Now when we look at the first beast, it says it came out of the sea. Mar-a-Lago means from the sea to the lake. Donald Trump lives on a property that actually says that, from the sea. So Trump rises from the sea, he's the first guy. And then we have Elon rising from the earth as an oak tree, he's the second guy. Now watch this. If you have been paying attention to Elon when he releases a social media post, he will often put up a post that seems kind of funny or goofy or silly. And in his post, he will let everybody know that he is some kind of character. And he makes it sound funny to be associated maybe with a video game. Because in the past, he has said that he is level 4 of Diablo, the video game. He's one of the top players in the whole world of the game that is actually Satan. He's one of the top players. So we have that. And then we have him putting on the Baphomet suit. He's letting everybody know that the spirit of the Baphomet, the goat, is also inside of him, just like it's inside of Donald Trump. So the two of them also have the goat Baphomet spirit inside them. And you see this picture, the armor's red, and the Bible says that the dragon gave him his power. So we have this, where Elon Musk is not showing himself in an angel costume. He's not showing himself as some benevolent person. or a superhero who does good or justice like Superman, truth, justice, and the American way. No, he picks a character that's the worst character you can think of. The dragon, the Baphomet, the transgender creature from below the earth. That's who he picked. And then, on top of that, he let everybody know that he changed his name. And he said it playfully. He said, "My name is Kekius Maximus." Now, Kekius Maximus sounds funny, but if we were to look at who Kek is, K-E-K, Kek was one of the elemental gods of ancient Egypt, 3,000 years BC, that was worshipped 5,000 years ago, or 3,000 years BC. And if you did some research on Kek, the story goes that there were 4 elementals, males, and 4 elemental females, and one represented the underworld and darkness, one represented the other elements. But Kek represented darkness. He represented the underworld. He was the god of the underworld, of chaos, of destruction. The god Kek from ancient Egypt. He was the destroyer. Now, folks, make note. A few weeks ago, Elon Musk stated, every now and then, as I said, he states that he's a creature, and he does it funny. But he put out this tweet, and I have it on the screen right here. Look at it. "See, this proves I'm a time-traveling vampire alien. Even though I'm 5,000 years old, I think I look much younger." So right here, it sounds funny. And all the nerds see it and they go, "Oh yeah, he's cool, yeah." But folks, let's dissect what he just said right here. He has been letting us know that he's Kek, and now he's saying he's a vampire alien. In other words, he's not human, and he's 5,000 years old. If we were to go back 5,000 years, the world would have been 1,000 years old. And here's where it gets very creepy that he's doing this, because this post right here is letting all of us know that he's the second beast and that he has a very powerful entity inside of him that's going to help to destroy the world and to bring the mark of the beast. Now, if we go back 5,000 years, we would get to the year 1,000. 1,000 years from the Garden of Eden, when God created Adam and Eve. By the way, I'm using the biblical model of the earth being 6,000 years, and we're about to enter the final day. So if we go back 5,000 years, the earth has been here for 1,000. Adam died when he was 930 years old, so he would have been dead now for 70 years at the marker of 1,000. But in the year 620, 620 years after Adam, approximately 620 to the year 700, around there, maybe 650. That is when the angels, the watchers, the 200 watchers, came to earth and took wives for themselves, the incursion of the angels, and then they had the Nephilim babies who were the giants in the land. You guys are aware of this. That occurred in the year 600 and something, approximately. After the angels showed up in the year 600 and something, now if you're taking notes, write this down, folks. Have you ever wondered how long that went on? How long the angels wandered the earth, those watchers? How long they were able to influence humans? Do you know how long they did it for, folks? They did it for almost 1,000 years, because the flood occurred at around 1650, give or take. So the angels showed up in around 600, and then the flood happened in 1600, which means for 1,000 years, those angels had the time to influence different kingdoms, civilizations, like in Egypt, for example, and they were able to convince humans that they came from the sky, that they were alien gods from the sky. In Egypt, we have the history that tells us this. We have the records of the gods that Egypt worshipped back then. This is where it gets interesting. Around the year 1000 in Egypt, the Watcher angels had already been influencing Egypt for over 300 years. And those Watcher angels convinced the people of Egypt that they were gods, and they came up with a narrative that they explained to everyone where creation came from. And one of the number one gods that was worshipped in Egypt in the year 1000 or 5,000 years ago at this time was the god Kek, K-E-K. So it's interesting, we have Elon Musk saying that he was around 5,000 years ago and he's an alien that is a vampire, which I'm going to touch in a second. That matches biblical history, and it matches what we find in the Dead Sea Scrolls, because Enoch talks about this. We have the history of it, and some of the other lost books talk about it. The Book of Giants, the Book of Jubilees, Jasher, Enoch. We have the history as well as some of the Sumerian writings, some of the old cylinders where we find the history, and also the hieroglyphics. We have the images of these creatures that were in ancient Egypt that looked like gods, and they had abilities that were otherworldly. So the Watchers were deceiving the world at the year 1000, and also they had their Nephilim children who were wandering the world at that time. And those Nephilim children, the giants, by the year 1000, that means those giants would have already been ravishing the world for 300 years, approximately. They were ravishing the world, and Enoch also says that they defiled all of God's creation, and they sinned with animals and birds and reptiles and humans, meaning that they were messing with the DNA of God's creation. So they had 1,000 years to create chimeras, to create these creatures that were half human, half animal. And that's why when we look at mythology, we see these creatures that look like they're fake. They look like they're cartoons or something from the imagination. But these things, according to ancient writings of lost books, the fallen Watchers and the Nephilim played around with God's creation. The Monitor, the bull-headed creature with the body of a man, or the griffin, or the centaur, or all those creatures that we've seen, half lion, half bird, eagle's wings on a lion, the jackal's head on a human, the Anubis. So when we look at the year 1000, this gives validity to the timeline that Elon Musk is letting us know who he is. Now, the Nephilim who are wandering the earth, the Bible tells us that they became cannibals. They were eating humans, and they had a thirst for blood. They loved human blood. They loved to drink it, as well as animal blood. They've just loved blood. And that's where the lore, the folklore of the vampire came from. The undead creatures who drank blood. We actually have that in ancient biblical history. That's what the Nephilim did. So Kek, this creature who was a fallen angel, had his children who drank blood, and the fallen angels might have been doing it themselves. They might have also been drinking human blood. When we look at what Elon says, look at this again. This proves I'm a time-traveling vampire alien, even though I'm 5,000 years old. That puts him at the year 1000, drinking human blood as a spirit inside the Nephilim, or in the Watchers. Folks, this is very spooky when we think about it. This gives legitimacy that Elon Musk is powered by a creature from under the earth, and he's letting everybody know about it. That's pretty wild, right, folks? When we look at the words of Jesus in Matthew 16, when he hinted that the signs that happen around you need to be discerned instead of ignoring them and looking for your own sign, folks, we have signs happening right in front of us. When he put out this meme that he's a vampire alien 5,000 years old, that puts him right in line with these creatures way back then before the flood. It gives legitimacy that he's powered by an underworld creature. It's a sign, ladies and gentlemen. He's able to make fire come out of heaven, fall from heaven. He's able to come up with AI to give us the image of the beast. He's able to come up with the chip, the Neuralink, to give us the mark of the beast. He's able to accomplish all these things. And now, on top of that, he let us know that he is Kek, that he's a frog creature. That's the other thing he played with. When we look at Kek in ancient Egypt, Kek had the head of a frog back then. It matches. When we look at Revelation, it says he had the horns of a lamb but spoke like a dragon. In 2018, for a while, he was joking around saying he changed his identity to that of a sheep. He was joking around with it, but here it is. Look at this. He said that he was one unit, and he was a sheep, a lamb, in other words. So he's showing us he's the lamb, and then he's showing us that he's the dragon. He's showing us both of them. When we look at the name Elon, we can look it up in the Bible. It tells us that the word Elon means terebinth tree or oak tree. Terebinth trees were often chosen for pagan altars. Now, Baal was the storm and fertility god that was worshipped with rituals. It involved child sacrifice, Asherah poles, and in the book of Hosea, chapter 4, verse 13, it says they sacrificed upon the tops of mountains and burned incense upon the trees, under oaks. Now, why did they do this? It is because when the Watchers came down to earth, they taught sorcery. They taught how to conduct magic spells and seances and speak to the dead. They're the ones that gave the forbidden knowledge to mankind, which included Baal worship, and they used trees to do it. Terebinth trees. Now, the Bible is very clear about this practice. God commanded the Israelites to cut down the groves and destroy the altars under the trees, because they always sought out areas that were outside the city, that was a high place. Perhaps it was elevated, and they would create a clearing. They'd build an altar, and they would sacrifice to Baal. The terebinth tree was a part of this. It was key to Baal worship. It was a sacred space. It was a symbol of demonic power. And the reason they did it is because they would get results. Demons would show up and possess them. They would be able to channel spirits. Basically, a portal was created to the underworld. So Baal worship is what Satan raised up and taught the children of Israel. So when we look at Elon's name, his name means terebinth tree. Now, is that a coincidence? What do we have so far? We have that Revelation 13 tells us that the second beast rises out of the earth, or like an oak tree, a terebinth tree, it grows out of the earth, and then it became a powerful force at the end of time. Elon's name means exactly that. Is that a coincidence? No, it's not. It gets even more interesting. His last name is Musk. Musk means odor or aroma or smell. And when the Baal worshippers would conduct their invocations to Satan, they would include incense as a type of aroma to generate the attraction to the spirits. So incense and aromatic offerings were used in Baal worship that were performed under the Elon tree. Now what do we have? We have that when they conducted their Baal worship, they had Elon trees, and then they also had musk, incense, aromatic incense to attract the spirits. So Elon Musk, when we look at his name, and now that we have this backstory, and then when we associate it with Revelation 13, the second beast rising from the earth, Elon Musk means Baal worship. It represents Baal pagan worship. Folks, this is not a coincidence. This is not just a lucky thing that happened. These are signs that God has provided for us. Just like he provided the name of Trump as a little horn, that's a sign that we must discern. It tells us he would be boisterous and narcissistic and full of himself. That is a discerning sign that we must attach to him because they match. And then we have his buddy who he basically married. His best friend, his twin, is always there with him, whose name actually means the aroma of the oak tree from the ground, which means Baal worship. So Elon Musk's name means Baal worship. It's pagan, folks. And then when we couple that with the way he behaves and the memes that he puts out and the jokes that he shares, that he's Kek, he's an alien that's 5,000 years old, which puts him right at the time when the 200 Watchers made their incursion to the earth. This is not a coincidence. Now, the Bible says that he would look like a lamb, have two horns of a lamb, but he would speak like a dragon. So he shows himself as a sheep, but at the same time, he also shows us who his God is. He dressed up in red armor with an upside-down cross, a blasphemous cross. His wardrobe revealed to us that he is a son of Baal, a son of the Baphomet, with the very powerful spirit entity who calls himself Kek, that was around in ancient Egypt 5,000 years ago, with a frog face. This is biblical, folks. In the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 30,